Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today, Mimi and I are going to spend some time here in what I call the forest pansy bed because it has a forest pansy red bud in it. And we are going to do a little bit of the continuation, fall cleanup, pruning perennials, just getting things nice and neat and tidy so that as we head officially into winter, that everything will be taken care of and nice and ready for spring. Of course, because spring is going to be here before we know it, and I do enjoy cleaning up the garden in the fall because one, it seems like there's not as much time pressure on it. Of course, where we are in North Carolina is zone 8A. I don't have to worry about like snowfall, right? I know for my folks who have to be concerned about maybe their winters being put under snow for their gardens put under snow for the winter, you may have a little bit of a time crunch. But here in North Carolina, I don't have that pressure and I can just get to beds when I can get to them. So that is what we are going to do today. I, of course, am standing here right with the forest pansy bed. That is what's going to be on the right side of the pathway. This pathway does lead from where the garage, the side of the house. This is, of course, part of the driveway. This is our garage pad, and have the path here that then does almost like a perfect half circle all the way around to the patio in the back. This bed we have been in many times before. It is a unique bed in the fact that we have lots of different sun conditions here. This, of course, is the forest pansy redbud. It is, I remember I was pregnant with Jackson when we bought it. He is 13 and a half. We got it as a 15-gallon tree, and so she is doing just great here. It's interesting to talk about the sun because this side of the flower bed gets lots of beautiful morning sun, but then because the sun sets behind the house over here, it gets afternoon shade. And then, of course, underneath the forest pansy towards the back of the house, that stays in shade all day long. So that's really a nice deep shade area. And as we walk around closer to the patio, this area over here gets really intense hot afternoon sun. So that is where my full sun plants are and doing quite nicely. You saw that Jerry was blowing out the leaves for me. This forest pansy had an abundance of leaves and it was super thick in underneath the tree and within the whole flower bed. There is a whole two different camps as far as it goes to fall leaves. Those who say you should leave the leaves all winter long because they are great habitats for beneficial insects, and leave the leaves, don't remove the leaves. There's another camp that says, yes, you can remove your leaves because they can also harbor harmful insects. In my gardens up close to the house, I remove the leaves. We sit on 8.5 acres. I am completely surrounded by woods. They are all hardwoods with some, pines mixed in. To say that I have literal acres of wooded area that has deep leaf litter is an understatement. Like, I have acres of woods with leaves. I choose up next to my house to remove these leaves, especially in this flower bed, because I know that I tend to have a problem with snails and slugs. I've had spider mites. I had spider mites on my firelight tidbit for the first time ever. I have had aphids in some of my plants. So because I can be prone in this flower bed to harmful insects to my plants, I go ahead and remove them because those harmful insects can also, lay their eggs in the leaf litter and overwinter in here, and then the next spring I'm just reintroduced to an even bigger population of that insect, whatever it may be. Another reason, very practical. There was so many leaves in here, I could not see my flower bed. I could not see my plants. I'm coming in here and we're going to be pruning. For example, I've got astilbes right here that need to be cut back. So I have astilbes right here that cut back. I have got ferns. I have got toad lilies. I've got various plants that need to be pruned back. They need to be cleaned up. I could not see the plant. Also, when Jerry was blowing, I had no idea that I had this outcrop of weeds right here. It's some sort of like oxalis that is extremely difficult to get rid of because it just forms this mat. I could not even see that. See, it goes from here all the way back over by the butterfly bush. Had no idea it was there. Now I can see that it is there and I can go ahead and remove it. So yes, in my flower beds up next to the house, I do remove the leaves. We just simply move them from here to the woods. And if you wanted to in certain areas, just because of the logistics of where this is, it's on concrete and gravel surrounded this way, we could actually pile them up, take the mower, chop them up, make great leaf litter mulch. It is wonderful, and I could add it back onto this flower bed. That way it creates more of a mulch instead of just layers upon layers where harmful insects can overwinter in my flower beds. So what we're gonna do is, Mimi was having lunch with some girlfriends. So once she got done with her lunch date, she was gonna come and help me. So we're gonna go through and I'm just gonna kind of show you. I think y'all really seem to enjoy it when I go almost like plant by plant and explain what I'm doing. So while I'm waiting on Mimi to get here, I'm just gonna go through and get weeds. So I'm specifically looking for weeds. The way that I know that they are weeds is they're green and they don't belong here. So there you go. I know it sounds kind of obvious, but if it's green, it is coming out. We will be pruning back perennials when she gets here and probably go ahead and clean up some hydrangeas as well. But first things first, I'm just going to go through. I have got my supplies. Let's talk about our supplies. This is some of the things that I always have. These two, Jackson calls them pancakes. They're little pop-up containers. Get these from Gardener's Supply. He calls them pancakes because they will actually completely collapse and lock down, and so they're flat like a pancake. So I've got one for me and one for Mimi. It's very lightweight, but it has a nice thick plastic bottom, so we can pull it behind us or whatever we need, throw all of our debris in here, and then I can then, once our bags get full, put it in the back of Johnny. We also have our kneeling pads, nice thick kneeling pads. The ground is wet. I don't want to get, it's a little cool today. I don't want to get have wet pants, so I have those. And then of course, if you follow us, you know that I have my gardening belt. My gardening belt is, I adore this thing. Every time I'm out in the garden, I have it on because all of my supplies are right here together. I can keep my Hori and my Felco number 2s, and I have little snips, the Felco 322s. I have a box blade in here. It'll hold my phone. It holds everything, and it's just a belt. Like I can hook it on, and it goes with me wherever, and I'm not hunting for my tools. So I have that as well. And then of course I have my faithful companion. She is here with me as well, so she'll be running around. So what I'm gonna do, get some weeds pulled. All right, my friends, so Mimi and I have gotten this flower bed weeded. There was not hardly any weeds in here except for right around the edge, like I was showing you that oxalis, and it was just kind of going crazy. Found some on the other flower bed across from us, and so Mimi is working on eradicating that. But I really do think that having that nice thick layer of mulch, and then this bed is heavily planted with perennials and annuals, I mean everything, shrubs, that keeps the weeds at bay. Definitely the area where the oxalis was the more exposed area. So that's just something for you to keep in mind. Nice thick layer of mulch, and the more plants you have in the bed, the less weeds you're more than likely going to have. What we're gonna do now is go ahead and start pruning back some of these perennials. Here we have, and this is, y'all, we've talked about this before. This is, don't overthink this. This is, don't complicate it. You want to keep it simple, sweetie, right? Astilbes. So I've got astilbes here in front of me. I've got 2 on each side. The freeze has completely killed all of this foliage. Your perennials are going to come back from brand new growth. They don't, this, you know, bloom stalk right here, it is gone. Next year, even if I don't cut this, the wind will eventually get it or something, but you're not gonna get green growth off of this old growth. So we're just gonna come in, and I've got my Felcos. I like the number 2s, and I'm just gonna come in and I'm clipping it down. There are some leaves in here, so of course kind of make sure you're gonna have to rake it around a little bit and then figure out what's a stalk, and we're gonna get all that cleaned up, and we're just cutting it back. You can cut it back to the ground. Now, another reason that I like getting rid of my debris is, we've talked a lot about this ever since really like early summer, is that last year, for whatever reason, was a great year for tree seedlings. I mean, I have maples coming up everywhere, and right here I have got 2 little pine trees, little seedlings right here, little saplings. So I want to get those out, because if you don't get those little tree seedlings out, then you're going to have a maple tree or a pine tree or a poplar tree growing in the middle of your flower bed. And get them while they're little, because once they start getting some depth to them, they are a booger to get out. So just as simple as that. And so that's the thing about perennials, is when the vast majority of them, not all, we'll talk about some, the vast majority of perennials tend to be deciduous, right? So they're not going to be evergreen. So we can come in here and get them cleaned up. So for the winter time, it may look like there's nothing there, that they are gone. However, your beautiful root systems are there. Come the springtime, they are going to come back bigger and better than ever. So for my astilbes, and then I've got a fern right here, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it down to the ground. And I have a toad lily. If your foliage is really, really brown and it is crispy and tender, not tender, brittle, cut it. Just cut it down to the ground. And then I'm going to show you some evergreen perennials that we're going to leave alone. I have gone around and gotten most of, probably haven't gotten all of them, but I got most of the perennials that have completely dead foliage. So the astilbes, the ferns, I had some balloon flowers, some various other plants. Now, hostas. If you wait long enough for your hostas, they will completely die back and melt away, and all you have to do is simply come in, and they literally will just come out of the ground like that. So, you know, I guess procrastination pays off in the garden sometimes. So there we go. Get all of that foliage out of there. We talked about a couple of minutes ago about there are some perennials that are evergreen that we really want to leave alone. Right here beside of me, in front of me, I have, this is an arborvitae fern, and technically it is not a fern, nor is it an arborvitae. It belongs to a group called spike mosses. But you can look it up. It's sold as a common name as a arborvitae fern. Beautiful, evergreen, and it has that arborvitae characteristic to it in the fact of that it has the green foliage, beautiful, really bright green in the summer months. And now as the cooler temperatures have come on, it will get a kind of bronzy, coppery look, very much like an arborvitae tree shrub does. I don't do anything to this. I just leave this completely alone, very low growing, spreading habit. It loves this spot. This has probably been in here, this may be going into the 3rd year that it's been here. We had some of these at the nursery a couple of years ago. I had one left over. I said, why not? Let's just try it. It is very, very happy here. So I am going to leave that alone. Also, we have several different kinds of hellebores in here. Hellebores, Lenten roses. Huge fan of those because they are extremely low maintenance and they bring you beautiful flowers in the dead of winter. I kind of have them more tucked in up underneath the canopy here of the forest pansy because these are definitely going to be more shade tolerant, shade loving plants. They can do filtered sun, a little bit of morning sun, but they do not like that intense hot afternoon sun. With hellebores, they tend to be more deer resistant. Now I notice I did not say deer proof. Nothing is deer proof, but they have a high deer resistance to them. They have really thick, kind of leathery, almost have even a little bit of spike on the edge to them. They are not very tender for your deer, so they typically will stay away from this. We're going to leave them alone for right now. I'll come back maybe late January, and all I have to do is go around it and take off the old foliage because the new foliage will begin to emerge along with the beautiful flowers. So that, we've talked about this before in other videos, how we just come in and just clean up. So that old foliage will begin to lay down as it is now, and then the new foliage and the flowers will come out. So I'll come back in and clean these up. That's a great little afternoon activity, you know, in, like I said, late January when it's just miserable and you get one day where maybe it's still cold, but you get some good sunshine and you just want to do out something easy in the garden. This is a great task for that. I also have behind me over here, we had talked about up closer to the house that I have some Florida sunshines and I have my autumn ferns. I have brilliance autumn ferns. They too, of course, the Florida sunshine is a shrub. It is an Elysium, great bright pop of color for your shade garden. And then my autumn ferns, beautiful evergreen, more upright fern. I will kind of come back in here and trim those back as we go into spring and the new foliage emerge. But right now they are stunning and they are beautiful, so I am leaving them alone. Now I do have a couple of hydrangeas, so let's talk about hydrangeas. Which ones do you prune and which ones do you leave alone? Basically in the hydrangea world, we categorize hydrangeas in two categories as far as how they bloom. They bloom on old growth or they bloom on new growth. And it really is kind of important to know which one your hydrangea does because of whether or not you prune it and or when you do prune it. I have some of both in this flower bed. Right here beside of me, this is lovely sticks. That's the downside of hydrangeas, is in that in the wintertime they are completely deciduous. They will lose all of their leaves. This is the Let's Dance Blue Jangles. It is a macrophylla hydrangea, which means that it blooms on old growth. I adore this hydrangea. It's nice and petite. What I call your grandmama's hydrangea, those were more than likely going to be macrophylla hydrangeas, but they could get really, really big, right? Those classic hydrangea blooms that we think of, depending on your soil pH, it could be blue, it could be purple, it could be pink, just depends. Because we are acidic, we definitely go more towards the blue purple range on our hydrangea blooms. And this is a classic example of that macrophylla hydrangea, but it's petite. It is only going to max out in that 2.5 to 3 foot mark, and it does bloom on the old growth, so I leave this alone. I do not prune this whatsoever. Leave it right here. It is very, very happy. I have one here, and then I have one a little bit further down. And yeah, so that's the good thing about knowing that you have a macrophylla is that you don't have to prune it. I also have right behind me, I have an oak leaf hydrangea, and that is Munchkin. And Munchkin is a very tiny little petite oak leaf hydrangea. Oak leaves can be typically massive. Mama has one in her garden that is every bit of like 12 to 15 feet tall and wide. It is huge. Munchkin, nice and tiny and petite. That's why I have it at the front of the border. It gets morning sun and then it's in the shade in the afternoon. Again, oak leaves are going to bloom on old growth. Leave them alone. Do not prune them. If you absolutely must prune a hydrangea that blooms on old growth, you're going to want to do it immediately after it blooms. That is the best time to do that in in your garden, hydrangeas that bloom on old growth, if you must prune them immediately after they bloom. Now I've got a cute little panicle hydrangea that's new on the market, so let me go show you that because we are going to prune that hydrangea. Here in front of me I have Tiny Quickfire. Tiny Quickfire is the newest addition to the Quickfire family. You have Quickfire, which is the nice big panicle hydrangea that can get quite large. Then we have Little Quickfire, which is, I have one, a Little Quickfire just directly in front of me. She's not so little. She gets every bit of 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide. Then we have Quickfire Fab that we have in other flower beds, like in the privacy berm. It's kind of that teenager, but it's one of the earliest blooming panicle hydrangeas. Beautiful hydrangea. Here we have Tiny Quickfire. Nice little tiny, I believe it is the most petite panicle hydrangea on the market. Now, panicle hydrangeas bloom on new growth. That means that every season, the growing season, that once the plant starts growing, it then forms its flower buds. The hydrangeas that bloom on old growth, like my macrophyllus and my oak leaves, they have already formed their bud sets currently this year, right? So in 2023, in the summer of 2023, they have set their buds for 2024. Panicles will not set their flower buds until 2024. That means that we can go ahead and prune them. They in fact actually respond better to being pruned because when you prune a plant, it encourages new growth. And since they bloom on new growth, by encouraging new growth, meaning we're going to encourage new blooms. Now you can notice I'm really just taking off the flower head. I do not want to prune this particular hydrangea very much because it's a petite hydrangea to begin with, but I do want to encourage more growth, more flowers. I was highly impressed with this plant. It absolutely performed like a rock star in the garden. I have 3 of them because they are so nice and petite and tiny. I had them on the front right here beside the pathway, and they were beautiful. I got these as 1 gallons and they were small 1 gallons beginning of spring. Got them planted, literally planted them, and then just walked away and forgot about them. They grew quite quickly, they bloomed, and for me as a North Carolina gardener, they turned a lovely shade of pink because we can have a problem with that with our heat and humidity, especially at night in our garden, that a lot of panicles will not turn that beautiful reds and pinks. Tiny Quickfire actually did give me beautiful color, so I was really happy about that. If you have smooth hydrangeas, so an Incrediball or that Invincible series from Proven Winners, those too bloom on new growth, so you can prune those. If you have questions about hydrangeas, do I prune them, do I not prune them, are they sun, are they shade, what do I do? We did a video on like a Hydrangea 101 a couple of years ago, really popular, and because I go down through each different type of hydrangea and give you the basics and what you need to know. So I will link that in the video description. So if you have questions about hydrangeas, what do I do, what do I not do, check out that video and hopefully all those questions will get answered for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and move around more to the sunnier side, finish up these Tiny Quickfires, and I might go ahead and do my Little Quickfire as well. I've got one last perennial that I am going to prune. If my furry door here will get out of the way, then here we go, perfect timing, thank you very much. I have a perennial geranium right here. This is Roseanne. Roseanne is one of those classic industry standard perennials, very well known, and she is a beautiful one. Does great blue purple flowers on it and has quite the spiller habit on it, which I love because here on the edge of the pathway. It just softens the edge. Perennial geraniums at this time of year don't look so good. It still has a good bit of green growth on it. So I'm just going to go in and clean up the foliage that is obviously brown and dead. So we're just going to get rid of that. The green we're going to keep. So it really is the brown stuff is all around the bottom, and we're just going to kind of clean that out. So don't be afraid with your, especially your perennials, y'all. If it's brown and crispy, just go ahead and cut it. All will be well. Neat and tidy goes a long way in a garden. It just makes you feel good as a gardener. You're getting off on a good start for the next season. And especially in a high profile area like this, is when I walk past it, it just makes me feel accomplished, as opposed to dread, thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get in here and take care of these and make these look a little better. So there you go. Easy peasy on that. Just come around. Get that dead foliage. There we go. All right. So we are pretty much 100% done with the pruning. So what I'm going to do is grab the other camera, and then I'm going to walk you around and show you how the whole bed looks now. Here we go, my friends. Nice, neat, tidy garden. Just makes this little gardener's heart quite happy. It still has a ton of interest in this flower bed. These are the Florida sunshines that I was telling you about with those autumn ferns. Aren't they spectacular? These are just great ferns, very hardy, very low maintenance, but great winter interest here. And I only have 3 clumps, and every year, obviously, as all perennials do, your clump is just going to get bigger and bigger. It will be quite obvious when the new growth starts to come up. This old foliage will get just ratty and tatty and just lay down, and then we will get it all cleaned up. Kind of the same thing with our hellebores. In fact, we might have our first little blooms here for our hellebore. We do. So here are some of those very first blooms from the hellebores. So this one I probably could go ahead and clean up a little bit, but I'm going to protect it some. So you can see there's a bud right there. And then coming over here next door to a different one, see how the foliage is starting to lay down a bit? That's what it's going to do. When it lays down, then we can come in here with our clippers and pruners and just cut it back right here. This is a little bud, so we do not want to prune that, right? You want to keep that, but it will flush out complete new foliage, and then we can just come in here and cut these old ones back as far as you can, and then those flowers really just shine, and it's just absolutely spectacular and beautiful. But as we go through, everything is nice and neat and tidy. Again, makes this gardener's heart quite happy. The great thing, of course, about having a flower bed with tons of perennials in it is that each year they just get bigger and prettier, and the annuals that I put in here become less and less. But I do enjoy putting annuals in here. I will always put my Rocapuco double impatiens. I like the coral reef because it's a nice bright pink. Looks really nice against all the different shades of green in here. I have caladiums in here. Caladiums do great in this flower bed and just have gorgeous color for a long time in the season. Just remember, in a flower bed, you don't have to have flowers to equal color and interest. You can have a beautiful garden, especially a shade garden, with very few flowers, but lots of different colors and textures. That is what is so fun about this bed, because it's a little bit of a I have a shade bed, I have a full sun bed, I have all sorts of different kinds of plants that can go in here, and they just absolutely thrive. My Edgeworthia, my gosh, y'all, she loves this bed. This Edgeworthia right here just is phenomenal. I think we only put it in here last year. Maybe it's been in here for 18 months. Edgeworthia, of course, does a great winter interest because their flower buds right here will open up and has just a lovely fragrance to it. my euphorbia. This is the Ascot Rainbow. We left it. We did not prune it. I will prune it when we start to get new growth in the spring, but I like to have that texture in the garden right now. And then as you can see, we got that little quick fire pruned, nice heady pruning on that. You can see I have yin and yang right here, viburnums, beautiful evergreen viburnums. But when that little quick fire is growing and blooming, you can see how it just kind of goes into the viburnums, and that's okay. Like when they are all growing and very happy, it doesn't bother me that we're a little lopsided right here, because it's nice and full, and my gosh, it is absolutely stunning. So if you can, get out there in your garden, have some time. If you can grab somebody to be out there with you, then that always makes it even more fun to be out there in the garden. But yeah, just get out there. Don't be afraid to prune those perennials. I promise they will be great. They will thank you in the spring for it. But as always, we hope you have found this fun, informative, and inspirational. Y'all have a fantastic day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.